The communication arrived on a Tuesday morning at exactly 09:47 Earth Standard Time. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center of Luna Base, watching the massive holographic display as technicians worked to decode the alien transmission. The signal had come from somewhere beyond the outer rim of human space, carrying patterns and frequencies unlike anything Earth's scientists had ever encountered. Dr. Lisa Chang pushed through the crowd of military officers and civilian researchers, her tablet showing preliminary translation results. She had spent 15 years studying theoretical xenolinguistics, never expecting to use her skills on actual alien contact. Her hands trembled slightly as she approached Morrison's command station. "Admiral, we've got a basic translation," she said, her voice barely steady. "It's from something called the Galactic Council. They're requesting a diplomatic meeting." Morrison turned from the display, his weathered face showing no emotion. 20 years of commanding deep space operations had taught him to expect the unexpected, but first contact with alien civilization was beyond even his experience. He took Chang's tablet and scanned the translated message. The aliens wanted to meet at a place called Nexus Prime, located in what they described as neutral space approximately 40 light-years from Earth. They offered safe passage and promised to explain humanity's status within what they called the galactic community. The tone of the message seemed formal, but somehow condescending, like adults addressing children. "What do you think, Doctor?" Morrison asked, handing back the tablet. Chang adjusted her glasses nervously. "The linguistic patterns suggest a highly advanced civilization, possibly representing multiple species. The fact that they knew how to contact us implies they've been watching human expansion for some time." Within 6 hours, Earth's leadership had made their decision. Dr. Chang would lead humanity's first diplomatic mission, accompanied by a small security detail aboard the research vessel New Horizon. Captain Ron Parker, Morrison's most trusted officer, would command the ship and ensure the mission's safety. The journey to Nexus Prime took 12 days using Earth's fastest hyperspace drives. Chang spent the time studying every piece of data they had about the mysterious transmission, trying to prepare for contact with beings beyond human imagination. Parker drilled his security team relentlessly, knowing they might face threats no human had ever encountered. Nexus Prime appeared on their sensors as a massive artificial construct, clearly built rather than formed naturally. The station stretched for hundreds of kilometers in every direction, its surface covered with docking bays, communication arrays, and structures of impossible complexity. Ships from dozens of different civilizations moved around the station like insects around a hive. "My God," Chang whispered as they approached the docking coordinates provided by station control. "Look at those vessels." Parker studied the alien ships through the bridge viewports. Some appeared to be made of living crystal, pulsing with internal light. Others looked like mechanical spiders with multiple arms and sensors. One massive vessel seemed to exist partially in normal space and partially somewhere else entirely, its edges flickering in and out of visibility. The New Horizon looked primitive by comparison, its hull scarred from micrometeorite impacts and its fusion drives glowing with crude orange flame. Chang felt a growing sense of inadequacy as automated systems guided their ship into a docking bay designed for vessels far more advanced than anything humanity had built. A delegation of aliens waited for them in the docking bay. Chang recognized the reptilian features of what appeared to be the group's leader, matching descriptions from the translated communications. This had to be Escatar, the Escatar representative who had initiated contact with Earth. Escatar stood, nearly 3 meters tall, covered in dark green scales that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. His eyes were large and golden, showing an intelligence that felt ancient and superior. Behind him stood other beings that defied easy description. Floating creatures that looked like living energy, insectoid beings with multiple arms, and others that hurt to look at directly. So, these are the humans, Zexathara said, his voice carrying through translation devices that made his words sound hollow and mechanical. How disappointingly ordinary. Chang stepped forward, fighting down her nervousness. I am Dr. Lisa Chang, representing Earth and humanity. We're honored to meet representatives of the galactic community. Several of the aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. One of the floating energy beings, later identified as Velnara of the Quindari, spoke in musical tones that the translators rendered as amused observation. How refreshing, Velnara said. They still believe in honor and diplomacy. How long has it been since we encountered such innocence? The delegation was escorted through corridors that seemed designed to overwhelm visitors. The walls displayed star maps showing the territories of council member species, representing thousands of worlds and billions of beings. Earth appeared as a tiny dot in an insignificant corner of the galaxy, barely worth notation. The council chamber itself defied human understanding of architecture. The space seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, with seating, areas for representatives arranged in patterns that hurt human eyes to follow. Technologies beyond Earth's comprehension maintained the atmosphere and gravity needed by dozens of different species. Chang found herself seated at a small table, clearly designed for junior members or observers. Around her, representatives of 17 different civilizations discussed matters of galactic importance with casual authority. The humans were clearly an afterthought, present only because protocol demanded it. Zexathara called the session to order and immediately began discussing humanity's application for council membership. Chang had prepared extensive presentations about human culture, technology, and peaceful intentions, but the council representatives barely listened. These creatures have barely mastered fusion power, commented a crystalline being whose voice sounded like breaking glass. Their ships still use crude chemical thrusters for maneuvering. Their weapons technology is particularly primitive, added another representative. Explosive projectiles and directed energy beams. Nothing more sophisticated than what we abandoned millennia ago. Chang tried to interject, explaining humanity's rapid technological progress and potential for contribution to galactic civilization. The council members responded with what could only be described as patronizing amusement. Of course they show potential, Velnara said in her musical voice. All developing species do. The question is whether they can be trusted not to harm themselves or others with technologies they don't understand. The session continued for hours, with council members discussing humanity as if the human delegation wasn't present. They debated whether humans were ready for even limited contact, expressing concerns about humanity's aggressive tendencies and unstable political structures. Finally, Zexathara announced the council's decision. Humanity would be granted probationary observer status, essentially making them wards of the galactic community. Human expansion would be limited to systems the Council deemed appropriate. Human technology development would be monitored and restricted to prevent dangerous experimentation. You should be grateful, Zexathara told Chang as the session ended. Many species require centuries of observation before being granted even this limited recognition. Your rapid development concerns us, but we are willing to guide your growth toward acceptable parameters. Chang felt humiliation burning in her chest as she responded with diplomatic courtesy, thanking the council for their generous consideration of humanity's application. Inside, she was calculating how long it would take to return to Earth with news of this disaster. The journey home passed in uncomfortable silence. Parker's security team maintained professional discipline, but Chang could see the anger in their eyes. These men and women had volunteered to represent humanity among the stars, only to be treated like children seeking adult approval. When the New Horizon finally docked at Luna Base, Admiral Morrison was waiting with Earth's entire leadership council. Chang delivered her report with clinical precision, describing every detail of humanity's humiliation at the hands of beings who viewed them as barely evolved primitives. Morrison listened without comment until she finished. Then he asked a single question that would change the course of human history. Doctor, in your professional opinion, are these aliens actually superior to us, or do they just think they are? Chang considered her answer carefully, remembering the casual arrogance she had witnessed and the assumptions the Council had made about human capabilities. Admiral, she said finally, I think they're about to find out. 6 months had passed since Dr. Chang returned from Nexus Prime with news of humanity's humiliation. Earth's government had reluctantly accepted the Council's restrictions, but tensions simmered beneath the surface of diplomatic courtesy. General Pete Collins paced the floor of his Pentagon office, reviewing intelligence reports that made his blood boil with each passing day. The latest report came from Haven's Rest, a frontier world that human colonists had settled 3 years earlier. The system contained nothing but empty space and a handful of rocky planets when the colony ship New Denver arrived. 15,000 settlers had built farms, mines, and small cities on the most habitable world, creating humanity's most successful colony outside the home system. Commander Amy Torres knocked on Collins' door before entering with a grim expression. She commanded Earth's Special Operations Division and had spent the last month gathering intelligence on alien activities near human space. Her report would change everything. General, we have a problem, Torres said, placing a data pad on his desk. The Escatar are claiming Haven's Rest belongs to them. Collins grabbed the pad and read the translated diplomatic message. The Escatar Empire demanded immediate human withdrawal from the Haven's Rest system, citing what they called ancient territorial rights. They gave humanity 72 hours to evacuate all personnel and equipment. Ancient rights? Collins growled. Our surveys showed no signs of previous habitation. The system was completely empty when we arrived. Torres nodded grimly. That's what makes this so suspicious. Our xenoarchaeology teams found no traces of Escatar presence on any planet in the system. No ruins, no mining operations, no genetic traces in the soil, nothing. The general studied the tactical display showing Haven's Rest's location relative to Escatar territory. The system sat squarely within the expansion zone the Galactic Council had assigned to humanity. According to their own rules, humans had every right to settle there. What's their real motivation? Collins asked. Quantum crystals, Torres replied. Our geological surveys discovered massive deposits in the asteroid belt around Haven's Rest. Those crystals are essential for advanced starship construction. Without them, a species can never build vessels capable of matching Council member technology. Collins understood immediately. The Escatar weren't claiming ancient rights to Haven's Rest. They were preventing humanity from accessing resources that might allow them to challenge galactic hierarchy. It was economic warfare disguised. As territorial dispute, Dr. Ben Walsh entered the office carrying a briefcase filled with classified research data. As head of Earth's Advanced Weapons Research Division, he had been working frantically to improve human military capabilities since the Nexus Prime humiliation. His timing couldn't have been better. General, I need to brief you on Project Breakthrough, Walsh said, opening his briefcase. We've made significant progress in weapons development based on observations of alien technology. The briefing revealed months of intensive research into alien combat systems. Human scientists had studied every piece of data collected during the diplomatic mission, analyzing shield frequencies, weapon signatures, and defensive capabilities. They couldn't match alien technology directly, but they had found ways to make human weapons more effective. Our new missiles use quantum guidance, systems reverse-engineered from alien sensor data, Walsh explained. They can't be jammed by conventional countermeasures. We've also developed armor-piercing warheads specifically designed to penetrate Escatar hull materials. Collins absorbed the technical details while calculating strategic implications. Earth's fleet remained vastly outnumbered by any Council member species. But perhaps raw numbers weren't everything. Human weapons might be primitive by galactic standards, but they were designed by people who understood war in ways that peaceful aliens had forgotten. The crisis escalated rapidly over the following days. 3 massive Escatar dreadnoughts appeared in the Haven's Rest system, each one larger than Earth's biggest battleship. They took position around the inhabited planet and began broadcasting surrender demands to the human colonists below. Captain Kate Hudson commanded the colony ship New Denver, now converted to a transport vessel for emergency evacuations. She had 48 hours to organize the removal of 15,000 people from their homes. Her messages to Earth grew more desperate as Escatar ships moved closer to bombing positions. "They're not bluffing," Hudson reported during an emergency communication with Earth Command. "Our defense satellites detected weapons charging cycles on all 3 dreadnoughts. They intend to attack civilian targets if we don't comply." The local Human Defense Force consisted of 2 patrol cruisers and 12 fighters, designed for asteroid mining security rather than military combat. Against Escatar dreadnoughts, they were little more than targets. Hudson began evacuation procedures, while praying that Earth would send reinforcements in time. On Earth, emergency meetings filled government buildings as humanity's leaders struggled with an impossible choice. Abandoning Haven's Rest would establish a precedent that any council member could steal human colonies by claiming territorial rights. Fighting would mean war against an enemy with overwhelming technological superiority. Dr. Chang argued for diplomatic solutions, believing the Galactic Council would intervene if presented with evidence of Escatar aggression. "The Council has rules," she insisted during one heated meeting. "They can't ignore blatant violations of their own territorial assignments." General Collins disagreed completely. "The Council doesn't care about rules when it comes to keeping humanity in our place. They'll find some excuse to support the Escatar while condemning us for resisting." Admiral Morrison listened to both arguments before making his recommendation to Earth's president. His words were measured but filled with quiet determination that everyone in the room recognized as dangerous. "We have 2 choices," Morrison said. "We can surrender Haven's Rest and prove to every alien species that humans can be bullied into submission. Or we can fight and show the galaxy that humanity won't be pushed around by anyone." The debate continued for hours while Escatar ships moved into attack positions around Haven's Rest. Reports from the colony described panic among civilian populations as alien vessels cast shadows over human cities. Children asked their parents why the scary ships were in their sky. The breaking point came when Escatar forces began what they called precision strikes against human installations. Their plasma cannons vaporized a mining complex, a communications array, and a small research station. The attacks killed 47 people, including children at a colonial school that happened to be near the communications facility. Images of the devastation reached Earth within hours. News broadcasts showed the twisted remains of human buildings and the crater where the school had stood. Public opinion shifted instantly from cautious diplomacy to demands for military action. The Galactic Council offered to mediate the dispute, but their proposed solution involved complete human withdrawal from the system and Escatar occupation of all installations. They claimed this would prevent further violence while respecting historical territorial claims. President Sarah Mitchell addressed the nation that evening, her words broadcast to every human colony and settlement. She spoke of the children who had died at Haven's Rest and the principle that humanity would not abandon its people to alien aggression. "We tried diplomacy," Mitchell said. "We accepted their rules and restrictions. We sought peaceful coexistence with species that view us as inferior beings. But we will not sacrifice our children to appease alien arrogance." Admiral Morrison received his orders that night. Deploy Earth's entire battle fleet to Haven's Rest and engage any hostile forces threatening human civilians. The Galactic Council warned that military action would result in humanity's immediate expulsion from Council protection and possible economic sanctions. Morrison's response was broadcast on open channels so every alien species could hear it. We don't want your protection if it comes at the cost of our dignity. Earth's fleet launches at dawn. As the largest military force in human history prepared for departure, engineers worked around the clock installing Dr. Walsh's new weapons systems on every available ship. Nobody knew if human innovation could overcome alien superiority, but they were about to find out. The die was cast, and humanity was going to war. Admiral Morrison's fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Haven's rest system like a pack of hunting wolves. 12 cruisers, 4 battleships, and 2 carrier groups spread across space in formation, their hulls gleaming under the light of the system's yellow star. 200 fighters launched from the carriers, filling space with the controlled chaos of military precision. The human fleet looked impressive by Earth standards, but it was dwarfed by the Escatar armada waiting near the inhabited planet. 36. Alien warships hung in space like metallic predators, their dark hulls absorbing light and radiating menace. 6 massive dreadnoughts dominated the formation, each one capable of destroying an entire human city with a single plasma cannon blast. Captain Nick Stevens stood on the bridge of his battleship Earth's Pride, watching the tactical display with growing unease. His ship was the pride of Earth's Navy, armed with the most advanced weapons humanity could build, but it looked like a toy compared to the smallest Escatar destroyer. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Escatar flagship," reported the communications officer. Morrison nodded grimly. "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing the imposing figure of Warlord Thexor, Supreme Commander of the Escatar Third Fleet. The alien's golden eyes burned with contempt as he studied the human formation through his own sensors. "So the children have come to play war," Thexor said, his translated voice dripping with amusement. "Admiral Morrison, I assume. Your reputation for foolishness precedes you." Morrison stepped forward, his weathered face showing no emotion. "Warlord Thexor, you are in violation of Galactic Council territorial assignments. Withdraw your forces immediately." The Escatar commander's laughter sounded like grinding metal through the translation system. "Territorial assignments? Those apply to species capable of defending their territory. Humans are barely evolved primates playing with fusion. Fire." Around the Haven's rest system, representatives from various Galactic Council species observed the confrontation from cloaked monitoring ships. They had come to witness what they expected would be a quick demonstration of human insignificance. Most had placed bets on how long the human fleet would survive, with estimates ranging from 20 minutes to 2 hours. Lieutenant Sue Foster sat in the cockpit of her fighter, part of Squadron 7 attached to the carrier New York. At 24 years old, she was one of Earth's youngest combat pilots, but her reflexes and tactical thinking had earned her a place in the fleet's elite units. She listened to the radio chatter between capital ships while studying the asteroid field that surrounded Haven's Rest's inner system. "All fighters, this is Squadron Leader Martinez," came the voice of her commanding officer. "Stay close to the asteroids. We're going to need every advantage we can get." Chief Engineer Bob Martinez worked frantically in the depths of Earth's Pride, making final adjustments to the modified weapon systems Dr. Walsh had designed. The new missiles carried quantum guidance systems that couldn't be jammed by alien countermeasures, but they had never been tested in actual combat. Martinez muttered prayers to whatever gods protected engineers as he calibrated targeting computers. The standoff continued for several minutes as both fleets maneuvered into position. Thexor grew tired of diplomatic posturing and issued his final ultimatum. "Human Admiral, you have one opportunity to avoid complete annihilation. Order your ships to withdraw immediately, and I will allow them to escape with minimal casualties. Refuse, and I will demonstrate why the Escatar Empire has never lost a space battle." Morrison studied the tactical display, calculating angles of attack and defensive positions. His fleet was outnumbered 3-1, facing enemies with superior technology and overwhelming firepower. By every logical measure, the battle was already lost before it began. "Warlord," Morrison replied calmly, "come and take it." The Battle of Haven's Rest began with a thunderous exchange of weapons fire that lit up space like a new star. Escatar plasma cannons sent beams of superheated energy across thousands of kilometers, striking human shields with devastating force. Human missile batteries replied with volleys of quantum-guided warheads that twisted through space in patterns no alien point defense system could predict. The first surprise came within minutes of opening fire. Human missiles penetrated Escatar shields through rapid saturation bombing, overwhelming defensive systems designed to stop conventional weapons. 3 alien destroyers exploded in balls of nuclear fire as their reactors overloaded from multiple impacts. "Impossible," Thexor snarled as damage reports flooded his command center. "Their weapons are primitive chemical explosives. How are they penetrating our defenses?" His tactical officer provided the disturbing answer. "Sir, their missiles are using quantum guidance systems. They're adjusting course and impact timing faster than our computers can calculate intercept solutions." The human fleet exploited every advantage their smaller size and superior maneuverability could provide. While Escatar ships relied on heavy armor and overwhelming firepower, human vessels used speed and coordination to avoid devastating return fire. Captain Stevens ordered his battleship into a spiraling attack pattern that kept Escatar gunners constantly adjusting their aim. Lieutenant Foster's fighter squadron used the asteroid field around Haven's Rest to launch surprise attacks against alien capital ships. The small human craft darted between floating rocks like angry wasps, firing missiles at close range before disappearing into the maze of asteroids. Escatar fighters tried to follow, but found themselves outmaneuvered in the complex three-dimensional battlefield. "Foster, you've got 3 bogeys on your tail," Martinez warned over the radio. "Copy that, squadron leader," Foster replied, diving toward a cluster of spinning asteroids. "Watch this." She led the pursuing Escatar fighters into a narrow canyon between 2 massive rocks, then used her superior knowledge of human fighter capabilities to pull a maneuver no alien pilot expected. Her ship flipped backward while maintaining forward momentum, allowing her to fire missiles directly at her surprised pursuers before spinning back to normal flight attitude. The alien fighters exploded in sequence, their wreckage joining the growing debris field around the battle zone. Foster's unconventional tactics were being repeated throughout the human formation as pilots discovered that alien combat doctrine couldn't adapt quickly to human unpredictability. The turning point came when Captain Stevens made a decision that shocked both sides. His battleship Earth's Pride had taken severe damage from Escatar plasma fire, her shields failing and hull breaches compromising multiple systems. Rather than retreat, Stevens ordered maximum acceleration toward the Escatar flagship. "Captain, what are you doing?" his executive officer demanded. "Winning this war," Stevens replied, his hands steady on the manual controls as automated systems failed around him. Earth's Pride accelerated to ramming speed, her damaged engines glowing white-hot, with overload conditions. Thexor realized the human captain's intention and ordered evasive maneuvers, but the massive Escatar dreadnought couldn't turn quickly enough to avoid collision. Stevens triggered his ship's reactor overload sequence in the final seconds before impact. Earth's Pride struck the alien flagship just behind her command section, and both vessels disappeared in a nuclear fireball that temporarily blinded sensors throughout the system. The explosion created a shockwave that damaged nearby ships on both sides. The sacrifice of Earth's Pride and her crew created the opening Morrison needed. Human forces concentrated their fire on the gap in the Escatar formation, breaking through their battle line and forcing the alien fleet to scatter. Without their flagship and supreme commander, Escatar coordination began to collapse. After 6 hours of desperate fighting, the surviving alien ships finally retreated toward the edge of the system. They left behind 12 destroyed vessels and over 8,000 dead warriors. Human losses were significant but manageable. 3 ships lost, including Earth's Pride, and 400 casualties. Morrison stood on his flagship's bridge, watching the alien retreat on his tactical display. Around him, exhausted crew members began damage control procedures, while medics treated the wounded. The victory felt surreal after months of being told that humans were too primitive to matter in galactic affairs. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving messages from Galactic Council observer ships. They're requesting permission to approach and verify our battle results." Morrison smiled grimly. "Tell them they're welcome to count the wreckage, and send a message to Earth Command. Haven's Rest remains under human control." The news of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy faster than hyperspace communications could carry it. For the first time in Council history, a newly contacted species had defeated an established galactic power in open combat. The impossible had become reality, and the galaxy would never be the same. The news of humanity's victory at Haven's Rest spread through the galaxy like wildfire, igniting political upheaval that the Galactic Council had not experienced in 10,000 years. Ambassador Dan Cooper sat in his office at the New Earth Embassy on Nexus Prime, reading intelligence reports that described the chaos engulfing multiple star systems. The Escatar Empire was in complete turmoil following their humiliating defeat. 3 colonial worlds had declared independence, their governors claiming that a military force unable to defeat primitive humans could no longer protect them. The Escatar High Command was conducting purges of officers deemed responsible for the disaster, while emergency sessions debated whether to seek revenge or sue for peace. Cooper had replaced Dr. Chang as Earth's chief diplomat after the original mission's failure, bringing with him a harder edge that matched humanity's new position in galactic affairs. A former military officer turned statesman, he understood that diplomacy was simply war conducted by other means. "Sir, we have a communication from the Frontier Coalition," his aide announced, entering with a sealed datapad. "They're requesting an urgent meeting." The Frontier Coalition represented 23 smaller civilizations that had been subjugated by Council member species over the centuries. These were the galaxy's forgotten peoples, races advanced enough for space travel but lacking the military power to resist stronger neighbors. Their sudden interest in Earth was both opportunity and danger. Fleet Admiral Jane Brooks reviewed the latest intelligence reports from her office at Luna Base, where humanity's rapidly expanding military machine worked around the clock. Construction yards that had once built civilian transports now produced warships at unprecedented rates. The victory at Haven's Rest had proven human weapons could work, but Brooks knew one battle did not make a war. "Admiral, the Vorthak are mobilizing their 3rd battle fleet," reported Captain Luke Harris, commander of humanity's first Dreadnought-class vessel currently under construction. "Intelligence suggests they're planning to test our defenses before we can complete our new ships." Brooks studied the tactical reports with growing concern. The crystalline Vorthak possessed energy manipulation technology that made their weapons far more dangerous than anything the Escatar had deployed. Unlike the Reptilian Empire's reliance on brute force, the Vorthak fought with precision and scientific methodology that had never been defeated. Dr. Ellen White burst into the meeting, carrying prototype schematics that could change everything. As Earth's leading shield technology researcher, she had spent months analyzing wreckage from the Haven's Rest battle, learning how alien defensive systems actually functioned. "Admiral, I've cracked their shield frequency patterns," White announced, breathlessly. "We can build defensive systems that will actually stop their plasma weapons." The breakthrough came from studying how different alien technologies interacted during the battle. Human quantum missiles had penetrated Escatar shields, not through superior power, but by matching specific frequency resonances that caused defensive systems to collapse. White had reverse-engineered those principles to create shields that could adapt to incoming weapons fire. High Counselor Ixandar convened an emergency session of the Galactic Council as political alliances that had existed for millennia began crumbling. The ancient being had governed galactic affairs for 3,000 years, maintaining stability through careful balance of power between member species. Humanity's emergence threatened everything he had built. The council chamber filled with tension, as representatives argued about how to respond to the human threat. The militaristic Vorthak demanded immediate action to contain human expansion before it destabilized the entire galactic order. The scientific Quindari expressed fascination with human innovation, suggesting that cooperation might benefit everyone. These humans have violated the fundamental principles of galactic civilization, declared the Vorthak representative, his crystalline body pulsing with agitated energy. They must be contained before their chaotic influence spreads further. The merchant Trelek disagreed completely, seeing economic opportunities in humanity's rapid development. The humans have proven themselves capable warriors and innovative thinkers. Trade agreements with Earth could prove highly profitable for all parties. Meanwhile, the Escatar representative demanded council intervention against what he called illegal human aggression. Zexathara stood before the assembly, his golden eyes burning with humiliation as he described the devastating defeat his people had suffered. The humans used forbidden weapons technology, he claimed. Their missiles carried guidance systems that violate established combat protocols. The council must investigate these violations and impose appropriate sanctions. Ambassador Cooper rose to address the council, his words carefully chosen to project strength without triggering immediate retaliation. He had studied the political dynamics of the chamber and understood that humanity's survival depended on dividing their enemies while building new alliances. Honorable counselors, Cooper began, humanity used no forbidden technology at Havens. Rest. Our weapons systems employ principles already known to galactic science, simply applied with greater creativity. If innovation is now considered illegal, then the Council has abandoned the very progress that built this civilization. The debate raged for hours as member species chose sides based on their own interests rather than abstract principles. The Ethmori, a neutral species that had remained silent for centuries, suddenly emerged as a key swing vote. Their representative, an elderly being whose species valued wisdom above power, listened carefully to all arguments before speaking. The question before us is not whether humans are dangerous, the Ethmori delegate said slowly. The question is whether strength deserves respect regardless of its origin. For 10,000 years, this council has maintained order through the principle that might makes right. Now we discover that humans possess might we did not expect. Logic demands that we acknowledge this reality. The political maneuvering intensified as both sides sought to build coalitions for the crucial vote. The Escatar proposal required a 2/3 majority to declare humanity a galactic threat subject to immediate containment. Failure would mean accepting humans as equals in the galactic community. Cooper worked frantically behind the scenes, meeting with representatives from smaller species who had grown tired of council domination. He offered them something the established powers never had: genuine partnership based on mutual respect rather than patronizing oversight. Earth doesn't seek to rule the galaxy, he told the Frontier Coalition delegates during a secret meeting. We want the same thing you do: the right to determine our own destiny without interference from species that consider themselves superior. The Kethmor, machine hybrid beings who had remained neutral throughout the crisis, surprised everyone by proposing radical reforms to the council structure itself. Their representative suggested that the current system had become obsolete, unable to adapt to changing galactic realities. Perhaps it is time to consider new models of governance, the Kethmor delegate suggested. Systems based on cooperation rather than domination, innovation rather than tradition. As the vote approached, both sides engaged in desperate last-minute negotiations. The Vorthok offered territorial concessions to wavering species, while Cooper promised technological sharing agreements and mutual defense pacts with anyone willing to support humanity's cause. The final vote took place in the main council chamber, before representatives of 43 different civilizations. High Counselor Escatar called for order as the ancient voting system activated, recording each delegate's decision in permanent galactic records. One by one, species cast their votes while the galaxy held its breath. The Escatar and their allies voted for containment, while humanity's supporters chose freedom. Neutral species wavered as political pressure mounted from all sides. The decisive moment came when the Ethmori delegate cast the final vote. The ancient being had listened to 10,000 years of council proceedings, witnessing the rise and fall of countless civilizations. His decision would determine whether humanity joined the galactic community as equals or faced isolation as pariahs. Strength deserves respect, the Ethmori representative declared, regardless of its origin. The vote failed by a single ballot, sending shockwaves through the galactic political system. For the first time in council history, a newly contacted species had successfully challenged the established order and won. The old system of absolute council authority lay in ruins, replaced by uncertainty about what would come next. Cooper smiled as he watched the chamber erupt in chaos, knowing that humanity had achieved something far more important than military victory. They had earned the right to stand as equals among the stars. 1 year had passed since the failed council vote that changed galactic history forever. President Sarah Mitchell stood at the observation deck of Haven's Rest Station, watching construction ships rebuild the colony that had become a symbol of human determination. The once small settlement now bustled with activity, as beings from dozens of different species worked together on projects that would have been impossible under the old council system. The Terran Federation had grown far beyond Earth's original colonies, encompassing 23 star systems and expanding rapidly as new worlds requested membership. Unlike the Galactic Council's hierarchical structure, the Federation offered genuine partnership to any species willing to embrace principles of equality and mutual cooperation. Admiral Chris Johnson, Morrison's chosen successor, reviewed fleet deployment reports from his command center aboard the battleship Liberty. The human navy had evolved dramatically since Haven's Rest, incorporating technologies shared by Federation allies while maintaining the tactical innovation that had made their original victory possible. Johnson had been a young captain during the famous battle and now commanded humanity's most advanced warships. "Admiral, we're receiving a communication from the Escatar government," reported his communications officer. "They're requesting a formal meeting to discuss what they call normalization of relations." Johnson smiled at the diplomatic language. The once proud Escatar Empire had undergone revolutionary changes following their humiliating defeat. Moderate factions had overthrown the old military leadership, establishing a new government that sought cooperation rather than domination. Former enemies were becoming cautious allies as practical considerations overcame ancient prejudices. The transformation hadn't been limited to the Escatar. Throughout the galaxy, established power structures crumbled as smaller species found the courage to challenge their oppressors. The Frontier Coalition had grown into a major political force, while several council member species faced internal rebellions from subjugated populations. Zara Okafor worked in her office at the new Interstellar Academy, preparing curriculum for the first generation of students drawn from across the galaxy. As humanity's leading expert on interspecies relations, she had helped design educational programs that would train diplomats and scientists for a new era of galactic cooperation. Her students included young humans, reformed Escatar, curious Quindari, and dozens of other species eager to learn from each other. "Professor, the Vorthak delegation has arrived for tomorrow's symposium," her assistant announced. "They're particularly interested in your research on cultural integration methods." The crystalline Vorthak had been among humanity's strongest opponents, but even they couldn't ignore the benefits of Federation membership. Their energy manipulation technology, combined with human tactical thinking, had produced innovations that benefited everyone. Former military enemies now collaborated on peaceful projects that advanced galactic civilization. Captain Alex Rivera stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel Horizon's Edge, humanity's first ship designed specifically for peaceful contact with unknown species. His mission would take them beyond the galactic rim into unexplored regions where new civilizations waited to be discovered. The ship carried Federation representatives from 12 different species, demonstrating the cooperative spirit that had replaced the old Council's authoritarian approach. "Captain, we're approaching the departure beacon," his navigator reported. "All systems show green for extended exploration." Rivera nodded, feeling the weight of history on his shoulders. This mission represented everything humanity had fought to achieve: the right to explore the universe as equals among the stars, offering friendship rather than demanding submission from whoever they might encounter. The First Galactic Assembly convened on Haven's Rest, in a massive conference center built where the original colony had once stood. Representatives from 43 different species gathered to establish new principles of interstellar governance based on cooperation rather than hierarchy. The symbolism was intentional. The world where humanity had proven their worth would become the birthplace of a new galactic order. High Counselor Escatar entered the assembly hall with the dignity of ancient authority, but everyone present understood that his time as galactic ruler was ending. The old council structure couldn't survive in a universe where upstart species could challenge established powers and win. Change was inevitable, and even beings who had lived for millennia had to adapt or become irrelevant. "Honored delegates," Escatar began, his voice carrying across the vast chamber, "we gather here to acknowledge truths that some of us have been slow to accept. The galaxy has changed, and our institutions must change with it." The High Counselor's speech marked the end of 10,000 years of Council domination. He formally recognized the Terran Federation as an equal partner in galactic affairs and endorsed the new cooperative framework that would replace the old hierarchical system. It was a graceful surrender by a leader wise enough to recognize inevitable defeat. Admiral Morrison, now serving as Earth's defense coordinator, addressed the assembly with the blunt honesty that had made him famous throughout the galaxy. His words carried weight because everyone knew he had backed them up with action when it mattered most. "We never wanted to prove anyone wrong," Morrison said, his weathered face serious as he looked out at the diverse crowd of delegates. "We just wanted to be left alone to build something better. But when you wouldn't let us live in peace, we showed you that underestimating humans is a dangerous mistake." The new galactic government took shape over several days of intensive negotiations. Instead of a ruling council that imposed decisions on member species, the new system featured a federation model where each civilization maintained internal autonomy while cooperating on matters of mutual interest. Trade, exploration, and defense would be handled collectively, but no species would be forced to submit to alien authority. Dr. Chang, now serving as humanity's chief science advisor, had the honor of addressing the assembly's final session. She stood where she had once been humiliated and dismissed, now speaking as a respected leader whose people had earned their place among the stars through courage and determination. "They said we were too young, too primitive, too different to matter," Chang told the assembled delegates. "They were wrong about our capabilities, but right about one thing: we are different. And that difference is exactly what the galaxy needed. The Terra Accords, signed by 37 civilizations in the Assembly's closing ceremony, established principles that would govern interstellar relations for generations to come. Equality replaced hierarchy, cooperation replaced domination, and innovation replaced stagnation as the driving forces of galactic civilization. Captain Rivera's ship departed Haven's Rest as the Assembly concluded, carrying its diverse crew toward unknown regions beyond the galactic rim. Their mission would seek out new civilizations and offer them something the old council never had: genuine friendship between equals who respected each other's differences. The horizon's edge passed the outer colonies on its way to the galactic edge, receiving messages of support from dozens of species who had once viewed humanity as primitive upstarts. Children from 100 different worlds watched the ship's departure, dreaming of their own chance to explore the infinite universe that lay waiting beyond the stars. As the exploration vessel disappeared into hyperspace, carrying hopes for a better future, the galaxy settled into a new era of cooperation and discovery. The species that had once mocked humanity now worked alongside them as partners in the greatest adventure of all, the endless quest to understand the universe and their place within it. The Galactic Council had mocked humanity until Earth proved them wrong, but the real victory wasn't military conquest or political dominance. The real victory was showing the galaxy that there was a better way to live among the stars, where strength came from unity rather than oppression, and where the future belonged to those brave enough to reach for it together.